What's going on, guys? Welcome to the JLML podcast this week. I'm your host, Paul. First time hosting it, but obviously you guys know who I am, and you know that I've been on these pods. We are reviewing the week 5 matchups this week, and I'm joined by Connor and Tita. I'll start with you, Connor. How's it going this week? How you doing?
I'm doing terrific. I had a very tough matchup against Tita last week, but I think the team is looking up. I'm happy with some moves I made and looking forward to seeing how the next couple weeks go.
Awesome, sounds good. And Tita, obviously you played Connor this past week. But how are you doing?
Doing well, man. Had a neither one of us scored a whole lot, but that's how it goes some weeks, and so we just gotta figure out what's going on next and improve. But I'm doing well.
Awesome, good to hear. And since we already talked about it a little bit, brought it up, we'll start with your guys' matchup in our breakdowns. Nashville Sounds and Amarillo Sod Poodles played. Final score was 568 to 482 in favor of the Sounds. Winners get the spoils. So, Tita, if you want to start with your matchup, break it down for us.
Well, it was, I don't know. I was kind of up the whole game. Connor kind of made it close a little bit. But, at the end of the day, Connor's not playing. He's just in an asset acquiring mode. And he's done, like I told him the other day, he's done a heck of a job with that team that he took over. I don't think he gets, I know he does, but I don't think he gets told that enough sometimes. But, for him, it kind of went down to where I think his arms outscored my arms. I believe I'm scrolling down. It was 245 to 243. I mean, had some guys that I kind of got my eye on and traded for him, but just looking at his starting pitching, Cal Quantrill gets 50. Uh, Austin Gomber with 24. Bryce Wilson with 22. His arms were really good last week, and my arms were not very good. My bat scored 323, which I'm okay with. But at the end of the day, it was helped by Max Muncy's 3 homers on Sunday. But at the end of the day, I just wasn't really happy with my team and the performance, and I kind of am looking to shake some things up as usual. But I don't know. It was a good matchup, but I thought my team could have been a little better. We got to step it up if we're gonna do anything this week against Cody. But Connor does a heck of a job, man. Like I said, he's a great owner, and he manages the heck out of that team.
Yeah, I like the 4 points that came from Joey Loperfido before you sent him back down. But Connor, let's go to you. What'd you see in this matchup?
The outcome was the exact same as I expected, but kind of for the exact opposite reason. The rebuilding team narrative is getting the bats down, but still having room to improve on the pitching side. My pitching outscored my hitting, if I'm not mistaken, 249 to 243. That balance is exactly what I look for if it was 150 more points. So the fact that my arm showed that much life was good. Under 500 points, not great. And Tita's bats just went off. One of our favorite things to do on this podcast is note interplay. And with as active as GMs, Tita and I are, there were no exceptions here. Anthony Santander had -1 for Tita and 35 for me. And I think, I don't know, there's a lot of takeaways for this. Tita just has the better team and his offense went off. But the fact that I was able to play that competitively against an owner who has had a great start to the year and who I've learned a lot from maneuvering roster wise is definitely a good sign.
Yeah, just looking through here, the bats definitely told the story of this matchup. Tita outscoring Connor by about 100 points, just a little under 100 points with the bats. A little disappointed. I mean, obviously Connor, is a rebuilding team, but after he took me down last week, kind of kept it within 100 with Tito, who obviously is a good owner, a good team. So all in all, not too bad. We'll head over to my matchup now with Bracton. Norfolk Tides took the Bismarck Larks down 661 to 421. Real quick, I'll touch on mine and then I'll let these two guys go. The tale of this story was my bats. I more than doubled up Bracton with my bats, 410 points from the bats. Just really solid. And I want to talk just a quick minute about Jerkson Profar. I added him as a free agent, and he dropped 68 points for this week. I think I started him just about every day. Maybe I benched him one day. I mean, the guy is having an incredible season, renaissance, if you will. He was the number one prospect in baseball in like 2014, 2015, something around then. Really didn't do much with his career. Struggled a lot at the start. Really couldn't stick on a major league roster for a while. But this year he's definitely having that renaissance and batting average well over 300. Hitting the heart of that San Diego Padres lineup. And it's just little moves like that can kind of separate a good team and a great team. But yeah, I mean, nothing against Bracton's team. Obviously, Bracton's on the very much younger side, rebuilding and obviously gaining one player that I'm sure will be discussed heavily on this podcast. But overall, it was a tough showing from the bats because his arms actually outscored his bats by 19 points, which I thought was pretty wild. But now I'll head over to Connor. What were your thoughts?
Well, so far, I think this entire season has been a little bit of a disappointment for Bracton. I know going in, we've discussed the volatility of some younger players, but 0-5 and currently being the second lowest scoring team behind only Smell with a lower output. That is probably not what Bracton was hoping for. I'll be very curious to see how patient he is with this, given the big guns that are awaiting in the minors. 220 points from the pitching for a team that has the stated goal that Bracton does is not bad. Jose Soriano has been a revelation this year. 30-point start. Chris Paddock had a very nice start against Boston and some decent streams, but Paul's team was just better and quite frankly was out for revenge after a tough loss the week prior. So I don't know how many takeaways there are from this, but a convincing win for the Tides was sorely needed.
It sure was. I can echo that. But Tita, what were your thoughts?
I just I don't know, to be honest with you. Sometimes, your team kind of performed. Sounds legend Willie Adamas hit 3 bombs last week. Respect, shout out.
Shout out.
Yep. I mean, your team did what I kind of expected to do. I mean, because you got a good team. They just, slow start. Some games you couldn't have lost. I mean, but you got guys getting healthy. Crochet 59 points. I'm a 2-start week. It looks like. Jordan Montgomery going -16 and you still put up 660. Logan Webb going -5 and you still put up 660. I mean, I'd feel really good if I were you. I wish I would have took advantage of the Cole Irvin for a worst. I wanted to, and then I just got cold feet, and then if you snooze, you lose. Bracton, Wisniewski with 36, Soriano, one of my cast-offs with 30, Paddock with 39. I don't know, though. I just feel like sometimes, and we've talked about it with Bracton. I mean, when you cut down your age group so much to what players, I mean, with baseball, guys are, they hit, post type sleepers, post type sleepers. I mean, guys hit their peak, later on, usually 20, 26, 27, 28, 29. I mean, and just targeting a certain age, which I get for dynasty leagues. I get that age is a big factor, but you can't treat 28-year-olds like they're Charlie Morton and they're 40. You can win a lot of games with some older guys and still be competitive and build. So that's kind of my thoughts. I'm not hating on what he's doing or anything. Braxton's my guy. I think he's a good owner. I just think he still has to do some things different with his team construction because right now you just got two or three studs, maybe some potential guys. Now I do think Scott from the Mets is a dude. If I was him, I'd probably call him up because I think he's a monster. But maybe it'll work out. It's not my style, but my style is not his style, and that's okay. So I kind of expected it. Norfolk Tides, they're going to be a problem.
Yeah, no, I Christian Scott's a guy that we talked about last week on the pod. Like Christian Scott a lot. Would love to get him back, but I know that Braxton would charge me a couple arms and a leg. So we'll move on to the next matchup. It's Cody's team, Bowling Green Hot Rods, taking down Scott's team, the Richmond Flying Squirrels. Final score was 683 to 498. Tita, I'll head right back to you if you don't mind. What were your thoughts on this one? Obviously, we know that Cody being the class of the league, but Scott's got a good team, underperformed a little bit this week. But what were your thoughts?
Well, Scott's team, I mean, when you look about what he did the week before, I mean, the dude went toe to toe and put up some massive amount of points. I think was it Bry? They played the week before Cody's. I'm toggling back and forth through the matchup.
Yeah, it was Brian Cody.
Yeah, and so this week his team didn't perform very well. But, we played Cody. I mean, I would say Cody probably didn't think his team performed well when you're scoring 750 every week. 680 is not a very big number. But when you're playing Cody, and this is my philosophy this week. You got to press all the right buttons because his guys are going to score, his arms are going to arm, and you just can't have bad starts. You can't have the 9-point starts, the 3-point starts. You the -21 from Quintana. You can't have those starts because this dude and his arms, they're going to put up numbers, and you just got to get lucky. And Scott's still building. Like I said, I've been in leagues with Scott for a long time, and he knows exactly what he's doing. And Cody's team is real deal. You just have to be on your P's and Q's and hope your team gets hot really that week. And in fantasy baseball, anything can happen. But I mean, if you look at the bats, it was 347 to 322, not bad at all. But then you circle back to the arms and it's 336 to 176. And Cody's had that balance. I mean, 336 and 347 from his arms and his bats. I mean, that's kind of what you strive for. And so, back to the drawing board for Scott. He's on a European vacation, getting after it. So, respect and shout out to him, and shout out to Cody, man. Cody gets it done, dude. I mean, Cody gets it done. He's a baller.
No doubt about that. Quick correction, because I just went and looked at it. Cody played against Chad last week, and Bry played against Hen. But regardless, point stands. But yeah, obviously you got to be on your best, your A game to even just have a chance to beat Cody. We'll head to Connor. Connor, what were your thoughts here?
I mean, I think that is just the perfect description of playing Cody, even when the team is not maybe performing to the way Cody would hope. It is a very tough matchup. 336 points from the pitching, maybe not what he was going for. Dealt with a couple injuries, a lot of roster turnover for the Hot Rods, but it still ended up being the case. With Scott, I think a lot of it came down to two negative starts. Jose Quintana with -21 and Keen Win with -20. If they have regular starts that they are ready for, I think that Scott is scoring 550, and this could be a different conversation. But against Cody, that's just not going to cut it. And his team just was okay. Bo Bichette, 18 at bats, 9 hits. If you can weather through that, then you know that you have a terrific team, and I think Cody's in a prime position to keep this going the rest of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I think you just touched on it a little bit, Connor. Cody made a few pretty big trades this week that we will get to after we break these matchups down. But to be able to score 683 points with a roster in transition just, to me, says a lot about the depth of his team and the management style that Cody has. But we'll move on to our next matchup, probably the matchup of the week. I kind of think we said it going in, and it lived up to the hype. The Clearwater Beach Dogs, led by Hen, fall to the Hartford Yard Goats, John Height's team. Final score was 672 to 639. Just real quick, looking at this matchup, John Height outscoring Hen's team, Hen's bats by 90 points. Definitely the big indicator there of how this matchup went. But I mean, Hen came right back with 361 points from the arms. He's got really good players. Grayson Rodriguez going down will hurt Hen and his team, but obviously getting Imanaga for this week, pretty big deal, 43 points. But then John Height has his own issues with Eovaldi, dropping 34 points, but heads to the IL. So we'll go to Tita here. What were your thoughts here, Tita?
Well, I picked him to win. Shame on me, I guess. I doubted John Height. But it all came down to Sunday. There were some some swings with Finnegan getting a save, Ohtani cranking out bombs left and right. Ohtani was Ohtani last week with 78. You know, Height puts up 368 with his bats. Arms were solid, and he's kind of free getting 50. Getting 37 from Roderick Munoz. Like, dude had a 8.5 E3 ERA in AAA. And then Hen with 361 in his arms, outscored Height 361 to 304. But I want to say, I think, and Hen would admit it, he might have a bat problem right now. It's crazy to say with a team that's got Acuna and Kyle Tucker and Nico Horner and Jose Ramirez and Altuve. I just think he may have a bat problem a little bit. And I mean, he got 278 from his bats. I know that frustrated him. But these are two heavyweights in the league. Like I said, I think my top 5 teams are Cody, Bry, Hen, Height. I mean, those are a solid 4. I don't know who else would be 5, but and then Jab.
Jab.
Yeah, I mean, those 5 man are tough teams, and I think we're all playing for playoff spot 6 and 7, and trying to see if we can stay away from some of these guys as long as we can.
I couldn't agree more. I think that's the clear top 5. I think we all kind of see that, and unless and until there's some major trades or injuries, I think that's what it's going to be. But to kind of hit on it again, because you touched on it real quick. Hen's team, I think, had a lot of turnover this week as well. We just, talked about Cody's team making a lot of trades this week, and he had the depth to overcome it, and had the right guys on the right days to score points. But then it was the other side of the coin for Hen's team. 1 point out of Brian Reynolds and 3 at bats, 2 points out of Corbin Carroll, both now on different teams. It makes a difference, and he only scored 278. The benchmark is 300 from the bats, 300 from the arms, and then you can go from there. And he didn't clear 300 with his bats, and I think it made a difference. But before we get off it, Connor, if you had any quick thoughts on this one.
I mean, I think the narrative on Hen's team changed in Heights to an extent. The first couple weeks of the season, we were really concerned about the depth of the arms, and the arms outperformed the bats this week. So I do think one team, Cody, had a terrific roster transition. Tita's shown that it can definitely be done and hitting a consistent 600 every time. I'm curious if Hen is going to play the long game and try to keep the core as is, or if we're going to see more shakeups coming. For height, I think this was a must-win. Tita, the streak breaker, might have thrown some things off, but John proved again that this is a top 5 team and isn't going anywhere. So, do these teams have another matchup later in the year? I would think so.
I'm pretty sure they do. That might be week 20, the narratives week, I think.
I mean, that might be the matchup of the entire year. I do think that Cody has shown that he's maybe a leg up on these two teams, but realistically, I think that by then, some of the sellers will have sold out more. Hen and Height are going to have more refined visions of what they want their team to look like, and that could be an even more explosive matchup than this one.
Yeah, I totally agree. And we'll move on now to the next matchup. Is the Kannapolis Cannonballers. They took on the Oklahoma City 89ers. That's Hamco versus Chad. And Chad came out on top. The score was 649 to 583. Connor, we'll turn right back around and hit you again. What were your thoughts here?
I mean, for the first 3 weeks, Hamco's team was more of a hospital ward. There were just so many injuries, and to come back in week 5 and have 318 pitching points and 265 from the bats, that's a little bit low, but that is a lot more consistency and point in the right direction. While the Cannonballers are trending up, the problem is the 89ers are skyrocketing. Everyone was very impressed with Chad's offseason and 340 hitting points and 309 pitching. That is the balance that Hamco is striving for on steroids. Yamamoto's turned it around. Joe Ryan has shown to be a good acquisition. Kirby Yates was now the presumptive Tex closer, and it seems like he's got a spot down there. And just consistent production from the bats all around. I still think Hamco is a decent spot for a late playoffs or at least in contention, but I do think time might be running out there, so it'll be interesting to see what he does against his matchup against me this week.
Yeah, so I'll point out 2 quick things. I think on both sides. For Chad, the big to do, I guess, this year was the league manager committee's decision to allow Chad to use his wild card that he won from the March Madness tournament to add Yariel Rodriguez to his major league roster. And Rodriguez had been pitching pretty well for the Blue Jays, but had a clunker this week and now is on the injured list with, it looks like, spinal inflammation. Not sure how that's going to go. That wild card kind of looms large now. Initially, maybe thought it was a good decision, but it's a to be determined, I would say, at this point. And then Wild Chad did end up getting the win, losing Wyatt Langford for, it looks like, a few weeks. Everyone's favorite for AL Rookie of the Year, but on the shelf now. So it'll be interesting to see how that kind of hits Chad and his team. If he has enough depth to rally around and, obviously field a good team. But then for Hamco, it's real tough, I think, for Hamco, because I feel like every week he had a good batting performance, but the arms let him down. And then this week, his arms dropped 318, pretty decent performance, I would say, above decent. But then the bats dropped 265. And it just feels like a constant back and forth of, can Hamco just find that consistency? And he's gotten a few wins this year, a couple wins. But what can he do to maybe kind of balance that team out, steady that team? Is it just getting better injury luck? Is it getting maybe an older guy to come in, try and maybe steady the ship? But we'll see. But Tita, I'll leave you with the last word.
Just kind of saying what everybody else is saying. Chad's team's on the upswing. I do I think his arms could be an issue right now. Morel's a dog. Losing Trey Turner really hurts Humko. I just think Humko is like in a 2-year string of just crap luck, man. I mean, um, I think last year everybody's like, man, Humko's got a team that's going to be hard to deal with, and then he struggles a little bit, and then this year you're like, hey man, he's legit, and the dude just is catching bad break after bad break, and um, sometimes in fantasy baseball and fantasy sports in general, that's how it is. So both these guys, they're going to be fine. Maybe there's a fire sale in Kannapolis. Getting out with the old and in with some new. But both these teams are super talented, and y'all kind of basically hit everything on the head.
Yeah, he did. Humko did mention that possibility of that fire sale in Kannapolis. If Alec Boehm had a more serious injury than it turned out that he had. So maybe they'll stand pat and go for it. We'll see. We will finish up the matchups this week with our two biggest blowouts of the week. The first one we'll talk about. The Portland Sea Dogs took down the El Paso Chihuahuas. Jab taking down Smell. Final score was 700 to 325. There's not going to be a whole lot to say about this matchup other than Jab obviously has a really good team. Smell obviously has a rebuild in progress, um, to say the least. Yeah. So, but for me, looking at Jab's team, 326 with the arms, 374 with the bats. He really just, I think he's focused on getting a good balance between arms and bats. I think he's pretty much there at this point. You always like to see as an Orioles fan, 2 quality starts out of Dean Kramer, 69 points in 2 starts, pretty solid. Bryce Miller, 51 in 2 starts. So it's whenever you have a guy that goes for 2 starts, you always want to try and see him get, 50, 60, 70 points. And Jab got that. And when you get that, you have a good shot to win the week. But then for Smell, I mean, shout out Smell. 41 points out of Javier Assad. I know he was shopping him, and that's a good piece, probably, I would say, for him to, get some assets. But I'll let Tita, if you want to take over. What were your thoughts here?
Well, I mean, you kind of nailed it. There ain't a whole lot we can talk about here, except for there are brighter days in El Paso, a lot brighter with him basically owning the first 2 rounds of the draft. And Smell will be fine, man. Like I said, Smell's a really good owner. He knows how to build. Jab, really good owner. Been in the league with him for years. Both of them know how to build a team and work. So, both of them will be fine. Smell will be fine. He's doing, he owns everybody's pick, basically, besides, I think, 2, maybe. So he'll be good. And like I said, Jab, he's one of the most talented teams. He'll be there in the end. It kind of went how it was supposed to go.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And real quick, I think 2 free agent ads, or not Manoah for sure, but Quinn Priester dropping 11 in his start with Pittsburgh for Smell. Obviously, a good player to have. And then Alek Manoah, the grand return of Alek Manoah, who had 6 strikeouts in his start against Washington. Only 2 points, though, because he gave up 6 runs as well. Maybe not something that Smell wants to talk about, but Connor, I'll let you finish it out here.
The Sea Dogs are getting healthier. The highest scoring bat for Smell was Nick Senzel. I don't think anything I could say would illustrate the state of these 2 teams more than that.
Yep, that is an absolute fact, and we'll move on now to our final matchup. It was the Rochester Red Wings, and they took on the Rocky Mountain Vibes. It was Dave against Bry. Bry and who do we just talk about? That won. Help me out, guys.
Jab.
Oh, it's Jab. Yeah, Jab. Thank you. Jab and Bry tied for the most points this week at 700. So, Connor, if you want to take this one to lead us off, what do you think here?
Shout out Dave. I don't know if we give him enough credit because he can be one of the quieter owners in terms of the trades, but 557 points and 285 from the arms is awesome. Jack Flaherty was traded 1-for-1 for Dalton Varsho, if I'm not mistaken, and 51 points. That's just terrific. Clark Schmidt for 38, JP Sears for 38, Papaya for 44. The list just goes down. And I think Dave is comfortable with the bats and is really starting the pitching core where next year I think it's going to be a competitive team. The bats underperformed a little bit, but that's just going to happen, especially when you have some younger guys. Riley Green with 60 points is definitely a highlight for me. Bry's just a bear team. It's a top 5 team. I think he's clearly the number 2 or 3 team in the league right now, and 357 points in the bats and continuing the consistent pitching that not all competitors say they have at this point. Just a very solid performance, kind of Cody-esque, where 700 points seems a little low, but even when Bry's team might be on the B game, it's going to be tough. And Dave put up a great fight.
He sure did, and I really wanted to touch on that just for a quick second before I head over to Tita. This matchup started out, I think Dave had like 100-point lead at the end of Tuesday, which was crazy to see, and everyone was kind of like, turning their heads a little bit because Dave gave me a good run a couple weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, and it was kind of like, well, wait a minute, like is Dave actually a competitive team? Are we seeing the emergence of the Red Wings here? But obviously, Bry too talented, too deep. So he took it over. Just real quick looking, Stephen Kwan had a injury this week. I believe it was Saturday. So he'll be out for a few weeks. Kind of a anchor for Brian, his team. So it'll be interesting to see how they can recover from that. And then he also ran into another one with Joe Musgrove, kind of out of the blue, hitting the IL because he had a great start in his start this week, 34 points, 9 strikeouts. So it'll be interesting to see what will happen there, what will happen with Musgrove. But all in all, Bry's got a great team, 343 from the arms, 357 from the bats. Doesn't get much better, and it doesn't get much more balanced than that. Just kind of as Connor said, it's that gold standard that Cody normally sets, but it was Bry this week that kind of set it. So I'll let Tita finish it out. What were your thoughts?
Dave is going to be an uncomfortable play for a lot of people this year. Dave, I mean, I really like him as an owner, really do. He's a guy that knows what he's doing. Bry's legit. I'm a big Riley Green guy. Of course, I've traded him, but he's hot. He's getting, had a 60-point week. Torkelson, he's going to live and die with him, but I get it. And like I said, this matchup, Dave started out hot. Bry walked him down, and that's what good teams do, man. And Bry's one of the best. So, and this is without a guy like Encarnacion Strand not popping off yet, which he has the ability to do in that ballpark when it warms up. So, really good game. I just, it kind of worked out for everybody kind of at the end, but I mean, Dave gave it all he had, man. Shout out to Dave.
Yeah, definitely a matchup that the final score was not indicative of kind of how back and forth and close it was for most of the week. But that will conclude our recap of week 4. A lot of good matchups, a lot of good wins by the good teams. But we'll head now into our trade portion of the podcast that I think everybody looks forward to the most. This week started on April 29th, and that's where we'll start. Our first trade that we'll discuss was between Tita and Hen. Tita received Brandon Williamson, Giancarlos Lara, and Moises Ballesteros, and he gave Hendog Taylor Ward. Tita, I'll go to you last, actually. If Connor, if you have your first thoughts on this trade.
I mean, I think this is a pretty fair deal. Taylor's Ward hitting behind Mike Trout at the time. I know Trout's injured now, is a really underrated player now that he's healthy, and Hen recognized that he might need some offensive boost. And Tita gets a couple of young, talented arms and a decent catching prospect in the Cubs system. So, three players for an outfielder with that talent. I think that was a pretty solid bet for both.
Yeah, I mean, I'll pretty much echo what you just said. That Brandon Williamson's a guy that's been on and off my roster. I like him a lot. I think he's a little bit undervalued, in that Cincinnati Reds rotation is just a little bit crowded at the moment. But if he ever does get a chance to throw 24, 26, 28 starts in the year, I think he's a solid, probably 18 to 20 point arm, which has value in this league. I think he's only 25, maybe, I want to say. Um, he's just got to find that time, and he has to benefit, unfortunately, at probably the expense of some of the other arms or trades or what have you, to finally see this, light of day. But for Taylor Ward, obviously, Connor kind of just said it, with Mike Trout going down for, we don't know yet exactly how long. It seems like it'll be a while. Taylor Ward kind of takes over the lead spot for that Angels offense, which is obviously not the best in the league, but Taylor Ward's a solid bat. I think he's worth those three assets. So I would say it's probably a win-win for both sides. Obviously, Hen needing an outfielder after the moves that he made that we're going to talk about. But Tita, since you made the trade, I'll let you obviously get your word in.
I just asset collection, man. I had an older outfielder that was expendable. I had quite a bit of outfielders that were very similar. Let me just see if I can, get some assets. I do like Ballesteros. I don't think he stays at catcher long term, but I think he could be blocked. Williamson, I mean, he's got a shot to. I don't think he could. He's a 20-point arm guy. I do think he could be settling around the 15 to 17, which is plenty useful. And so, getting three assets, I knew I could probably flip Williamson and get maybe one or two more. Like I said, Ward was expendable to me, but it kind of felt the need to get a bat for him. So that's kind of how it worked out.
Yeah, no, totally get that. Absolutely. We'll hit this one real quick just because I think it's a little bit interesting. Tita received Joey Loperfido, and Dave received AJ Smith-Shawver. I'll touch on it real quick, then I'll let you guys go. I like Joey Loperfido a decent amount. Obviously he's got off to a hot start in AAA this year. I think he had like 10 home runs in 4 weeks, which is pretty crazy. And then AJ Smith-Shawver obviously was the hotness in the streets last year for Atlanta. Came up he did come up from, I think, straight from AA last year, but he's kind of hopped around a little bit this year. But obviously still a good pitching prospect. So I just thought it was interesting, getting outfield prospect for a pitching prospect. Always kind of interesting. Two high end prospects at that. Tita, you made the trade. What were your thoughts?
I'm a Joey Loperfido guy. I mean, he's got some hit tool issues, but these days everybody does. It seems like Smith-Shawver, he's going to be good. I just wanted the bat. I thought at the time I needed a young outfield guy spec, especially in the outfield that was close to being up or was up, and and I think that's about the time Verdugo went on maternity leave and or paternity leave, and so I was kind of a bat short, and so that kind of made sense for me. That's kind of why I called him up, but I think it was an even swap for needs.
Yeah, no, absolutely fair enough. And then Connor, real quick, if you have any thoughts.
Yeah, AJ Smith-Shawver's stock's taken a little bit of a hit, and Dave has really been aiming to get more pitching. So I think this deal was maybe I still like Smith-Shawver a bit more, but I think it's a great deal for both sides.
Yep, fair enough. We'll move on to some of the juicy trades now. Um, this one's probably was going to be one of the bigger ones until a few later ones happened. But Hendog received Shota Imanaga and Mike Trout, and Cody received Corbin Carroll and Cutter Crawford. Connor, I'll head right back to you. What were your thoughts here?
So I know Hen's a big Imanaga guy, and he could not have seen what happened to Trout a day or two later. That said, I think that moving Corbin Carroll here might have been a little bit of a rush. Um, it's no secret that in the second half of last year, Carroll went down a little bit, so there are shoulder concerns, but he's just such a top end talent. I really don't love that it was a 2 for 2. It seems like there could have been a bigger package with a Randy Arozarena or some lesser high end outfielder. So I'm not too big of a fan of it. I think Cody did really well here, and now it's just a question of when does Carroll start getting hot again.
Yeah, absolutely. And Tita, if you have any thoughts here.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I mean, I just thought I like Imanaga too. I think he's really good. I think he, I think Corbin Carroll's the best player in the deal. I think Imanaga's the second best player in the deal. If you look at it in a 2 for 2 sense, I think Hen got the better depth. He got the second and third best player in the deal. Crawford's not bad. If it was a 2 for 1, I wouldn't even. I don't think anybody would have batted an eye. Kind of agreeing though, the 2 for 2. I mean, Corbin Carroll's a young superstar, and those guys really don't fall out of trees. And I think Hen was. I mean, Hen's fine with it. Hen knows what he's doing. He's a great owner. I just think Imanaga's gotta. He's got to be who he's been, if that makes sense, to carry this deal for Hen. I think it kind of leans pretty heavily towards Cody, but you never know. It might, one pitching injury, one not figuring out, still ain't fixing the Statcast readings with Carroll, and maybe we look back in a year from now or 6 months from now and say, hey man, that was a robbery by Hen. So
Yeah, and obviously the Trout injury has significant impact on quote unquote winners and losers of this deal. But I wanted to go last intentionally because I have, I think, a quite contrarian point of view on Corbin Carroll. I mean, I kind of said it as he was coming up last year that I don't think he's that great. I think he I think he's good. Don't get me wrong. I think he's a very good player, but I don't think he's like a top 5 fantasy dynasty asset. Maybe that's a bad take. Maybe that's a hot take, what have you. But I mean, I've said to Cody a couple times, and he still ended up trading for him. I think Corbin Carroll is Alec Thomas, who's his teammate in Arizona. I think he's Alec Thomas with a better publicist. I think he's got good speed. I think he's got good power, but I don't know that he hits that well. And obviously he doesn't have the best batting average this year, but you could just chalk it up to slow start, this and that, blah, blah, blah. I think in 5 years, we'll look back on 2023 as the outlier and not the rule for Corbin Carroll. That's not to say I didn't make an offer to Hen for him. 100% I did. But I did with intention to get him, and when he had a hot week, to flip him for more than what I paid. Obviously, he didn't go with me. He went with Cody, and the rest is history. But we'll move on now to the next trade, and that was just I think, like an hour later. Cody quickly turned around Cutter Crawford. He got Dylan Cease and George Lombard Jr., and Hamco got Cutter Crawford, Harry Ford, and Cade Horton. Tita, you can take it first. What were your thoughts?
Absolutely loved it for Hamco. Absolutely loved it for Hamco. I think Cade Horton is him, Jackson Jobe, two of my favorite pitching prospects in the game right now. I really think Horton's a monster. Cutter Crawford's very, very underrated. I mean, Cease is a dude, but he's so wildly inconsistent. I thought it was a really good haul for Comco, especially with, possibly getting two pitchers that can put up what Cease is putting up. But, I mean, I get why Cody did it. He went for the high ceiling. When Cease is at his best, his stuff's as good as anybody's. So I get it. I just think Hamco was a good trade. I liked it for Hamco's side.
Yeah, I can get that point of view. Dylan Cease, I think, is the best player in this deal. I don't think why necessarily that he's the best, like head and shoulders above the rest. Because I do agree with you, Tita, that Cade Horton's an absolute beast. I was trying to get Cade Horton for many weeks and months from Cody. And obviously Hamco gets the prize here. But Harry Ford equally, I think, is a great player. Probably top 3 catching prospect in the game, right next to Dallas and Sammy. Really good player for Seattle, and then Cutter Crawford we kind of just talked about. So yeah, I mean, like you said, I understand why Cody did this. He wanted Cease, he wanted that quote unquote ace that's pitching and performing right now. But I think he did pay quite a bit on the back end with those 2 prospects. Connor, I'll let you get the last word here.
Yeah, this deal makes a ton of sense. Dylan Cease is the biggest name brand, but I do want to hit on the rise of Cutter Crawford. At this time last year and maybe going into July, he was kind of on a fringe roster player. Over the offseason, he moved for 2 or 3 specs. And now he is the headliner in a Dylan Cease deal. So that just speaks to how quickly dynasty assets can go up or go down. I know both owners are big Harry Ford fans, and Cade Horton, I agree, is an absolute dog and could be the best young pitcher coming out of the Cubs system in the last year or two. So I really like this. I prefer it for Hamco. It gives him a win now pitcher and the flexibility to build for the future if he decides to hit the rebuild button. But this was the fun one.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll move to the next one. Hendog got Chris Sale, Mason Wynn, and Yanquiel Fernandez. And Cody got Bo Bichette. I'll start real quick. Obviously, Bo Bichette, the prize of this deal, in my opinion, because Bo Bichette, I know he's gotten off to a slow start, but at his height, he's top 5, maybe top 10, somewhere in there, shortstop in the game. And obviously that was something that Cody valued. So Chris Sale, older, obviously pitching decently for the Braves. Mason Wynn, I kind of see him as a defense first shortstop. I'm not sure that he'll ever be, hitting out of the bottom third of any lineup that he's in. But Yanquiel Fernandez, I owned for quite a while. Like him a lot. Obviously has those lofty Yordan Alvarez comps. Plus plays in Colorado, so the thin air out there. But overall, probably not the best return that Heng could have got. Obviously, if Bo Bichette was hitting 300 and had 8 home runs, then he probably would have gotten double that return. But sometimes you got to shake things up, and Hen obviously took this as an opportunity to shake things up. But Connor, I'll head to you next. What were your thoughts?
I think this is another tough time for a sell low and buy high. Chris Sale is currently averaging 27 points a game, and he has not done that since 2018. The Braves have our new look for him. I'm not convinced this is going to last the entire season. So I think a lot of it is getting a big arm and Sale and hoping that Wynn and Fernandez can live up to their potential. And I'm not the biggest Bo Bichette fan on the planet, but there's no denying he is an absolute elite fantasy asset. So I'm not sure if I would have moved on him. I don't know if I don't remember Bichette being widely shopped, but I do think that one or two owners would have likely come up with a better offer than this.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And then Tita, what were your thoughts?
I kind of agree with Connor. I'm not the biggest Bo Bichette fan in the world either. I mean, I'd like him, but I don't love him. Um, and I just respect him, man. You know, he wasn't afraid to. You know, he had a value. He stuck to that value. Being a Braves fan, Sale looks good to me. I mean, he looks like a little bit like vintage Sale. Um, you always worry about him getting injured though, but that's a risk you have to take, and he's going to play for one of the top 5 teams in baseball, and he's going to rack up wins, and we'll see how it shakes out. I think that's an interesting one to kind of keep track of.
Yeah, for sure, no doubt about that. But now we'll move on to the next one. Obviously, I think this is the one that anybody that's listening to this podcast tuned in exclusively to hear about. It's the big trade of the week. It is Bracton getting Ellie De La Cruz, and Cody got Jared Jones, Colton Cowser, Jackson Merrill, Jackson Holiday, Kyle Teal, and Jackson Ferris. He got 3 of that Jackson 5 that Bracton worked so hard to collect. I'm going to let Connor go first here because Connor messaged me when I told him that I would be hosting and he would be on with me. The first thing he messaged me was that he's going to have a take about this trade. So, Connor, let's hear your take about it.
It's hard for me to show this sometimes as a rebuilding team still growing. But I'm a big fan of consistency, knowing what you're getting, having been there and done that before. Ellie De La Cruz has looked absolutely electric through slightly, I think, over a season in Major League Baseball. And he was traded for 4 people where you could say the exact same thing in a smaller sample size. Jared Jones has looked like a top to 10, 15 pitcher in Dynasty. Colton Cowser has gone off to a rocket start. Jackson Merrill is hitting behind MVP candidates such as Manny Machado and Xander Bogaerts, or at least former ones. Jackson Holiday is the number 1 prospect, and then a couple other highly regarded ones. If 3 of those names had moved for Ellie De La Cruz, I would have believed it. And I think everyone was rooting for Bracton to keep the Jackson 5 up and try to diversify all of these young assets in case 1 or 2 of them failed. But I think this is just overly regretting moving a player that got off to a hot start and grossly overpaying to get him back, because the chance that 1 or 2 of the pieces that Bracton gave will outshine Ellie is a lot better than Ellie keeping this up for 15 years.
Yeah, no, that's obviously a great take. I really don't know that I can disagree too much with it. But Tita, I'll let you jump in here.
I remember a time when, and I'm gonna go back and find it. Going back and finding it. Give me 2 seconds. But I remember a time when I made a move, and I remember Paul just wearing me out. That I messed up value, and hold on. Well, I'm gonna say like the Luis Robert deal. Of course, my phone was acting crazy, but I gave up for Luis Robert. I'm on my way there now. Let's see. I gave up. Of course, like I said, my Wi-Fi is acting crazy.
I think I know what you're referring to here. So this is
Yeah,
gonna
so
be
I
fun.
gave up, and I gave up a lot too. Now I gave up Dalton Varsho, Indy Rodriguez, Smells 26 first, Bryce 26 first, my 26 first, Reese Olson, Jet Williams, Joe Andrew Vargas, my 25 first, and my 27 first. 1, 2, 3. I gave up 5 firsts, which you never know what they're going to turn out to, and I gave up a haul, but I would dare say that I didn't give up near as much as Brackton did. Because Brackton gave up a ton of high ceiling. I mean, who's got the highest ceiling out of what I gave up? Jet Williams, you know. Um, I just can't believe he. I guess I can, but I mean, I don't know. I just numerous high end young talent that he, Jared Jones is a guy that I believed in from the beginning. He's an ace. Jackson Ferris could be an ace. He's a long way off. I mean, but not to mention guys like what Merrill. I mean, I don't know, man. I'm just gonna let Bracken cook, but he is right now. If you look at his team, I mean, outside of Ellie and Volpe and Churio, and I gave him Colt Keith and Jackson Holiday. I mean, bat wise, that dude don't have much. And then you look at his arms. The most volatile asset in fantasy baseball is young starting pitching. I just young starting pitching as volatile as it gets, and I don't know, man. I didn't like that trade for Bracken at all. I mean, Ellie's got to be a 40 homer, 80 steal guy for the next 5 years for that trade to pan out. I mean, I know that's I'm crying on the crazy end of that one, but man, it's just Ellie's got to be super elite, which he could be. I mean, he could be the top 2, 3, 4, 5 fantasy asset. He could really be, but you have to have some form of depth in fantasy baseball to win, and Bracken doesn't have it.
I'm going to add 1 point to Tita there. We value first rounders very highly in this league, but looking at most of the individual pieces Cody got, would you trade 2 first rounders for Jared Jones? Would you trade 2 first rounders for Jackson Holiday? Would you trade 2 first rounders for Jackson Merrill or Colton Cowser? I think a lot of GMs would say yes because of the certainty of that ceiling versus who knows what a top 10 pick in a random draft will get you. So compared to a pick deal, I think this is just on a whole nother level.
Right. So all fair points. I don't know necessarily that I can disagree with any of them. But as the third person here that's going to talk about this trade, I'm going to throw an attempt to defend Bracken a little bit. So, Ellie De La Cruz, to me, now this is my opinion, just to me, Ellie De La Cruz is right now probably the number 2 dynasty fantasy asset in baseball. And he's only number 2 to Ronald Acuna. And honestly, if Ronald Acuna doesn't start getting it going, Ellie might be number 1.
Nah.
Okay. I hold on now, Tita. Hold on now. I know what you'll say. Strikeout rate and blah blah blah, batting average. There is not a single player in baseball right now that has the home runs and stolen bases that Ellie has. Both of them. And yeah, I mean, does you said it, Tita? Does Ellie need to be a 40 home run, 80 stolen base guy for this trade to work out? I think yes. I think he does need to be that. Now, do I think he can be that? At this moment, I would also have to say yes. Because obviously we can only go off of pace, but that is his current pace. He is on pace to break both of those numbers. So listen, you're not going to find a bigger Jackson Holiday fan in this league than me. You're not going to find probably a bigger Colton Cowser fan in this league than me. Do I think he paid too much to get one player? Yeah, I do. Connor nailed it. Would you pay 2 firsts each for the 6 guys that Cody ended up getting? So it'd be 12 first round picks. The answer is yeah, for sure, I think. So, at the end of the day, yeah, it's a lot to trade, and I don't think Braxton even would deny that it's a ton to give away. And at the end of the day, no, I don't really like this move for Braxton because he doesn't need to have at his peak, the number one player in fantasy baseball. What Braxton needs is depth. And he just gave all of that depth away. Because, like you said, Tita, now he has, Ellie, but then he has Jackson Churio and Volpe. And, outside of that 3, maybe another guy in there, 4 guys. There's a lot of replacement level players on his team. And that's not going to go very well for him as we move along in the season. And my fear for him is that he's going to see that, understand that, realize that, put Ellie on the block, and get half of what he got, or half of what he gave away, in this trade. And when you do those type of things, that's how you ruin your team, and that's something that you can't come back from. I know I said I defend Braxton here, and at the end of the day, getting the number one player, or at least top 3, maybe top 5, let's say, it's you'd have a tough time having an argument to say he's not top 5 in Dynasty right now. So it's obviously when you get the best player, in my opinion, in the deal, you have some form of an argument. But when you give away 6 assets that are those 6 assets, yeah, man, it's tough. And and everyone was, saying Cody was gonna win the league and blah 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 and this and that. And I'll touch on Cody's side real quick. Listen, before this trade, Cody was dropping 700 points a week. So it's not like suddenly he's now really good. And I get that. Well, no, now he has the depth and blah 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 and this and that. Cody wheels and deals just like the rest of us. So I already know for a fact that we'll get to it that he already gave away Jackson Holiday. So to say like, oh, this is going to ruin the league, oh, blah blah blah, it's not going to do that. I know that for a fact that Cody's going to lose deals from here, and he'll win some, he'll lose some, and it's just one of those deals that was maybe a win for Cody and a loss for Braxton. But maybe Holiday isn't him. Maybe Kyle Teal doesn't hit for a good average. Maybe Jared Jones comes back to earth a little bit. So, at the end of the day, and this is the last thing I'll say, it's a trade, obviously a big trade, and obviously one that sent shockwaves across our league. But it's a trade that we'll look back on and just, judge it then. In a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, so on and so on. So yeah, if you guys have any last comments, Tita, Connor, if you guys want to jump in real quick. But I just wanted to get my 2 cents in.
Yeah, there's no room there's no margin of error. Deal. 0. It has to go according 100% towards Ellie. I just don't like the move because he gave up some premium talent that's young, and they may not ever be uh, LA. But on the whole, they are better than LA on a whole. So points wise, when you're playing points leagues, at the end of the day, it don't matter who scores them; they just count the points.
Absolutely, Connor.
I have nothing to add.
Perfect. Sounds good. We'll move on to obviously not as big of a trade, but it was impactful one. Hen got Nico Horner, and Tita got Brian Reynolds, Yanquiel Fernandez, Bragton's 2026 second round pick, and Hen's 2026 third round pick. Tita, you made the trade. I'll let you start.
Uh, just asset collection again. I like Nico, but I was willing to move him. I didn't think it was anything major. I mean, he's put up numbers, but like I said, I'm in the asset collection business, so I gotta keep guys moving. I gotta get assets and move guys around, and sometimes it works out. Sometimes you're the bug. Sometimes you're the windshield. So we'll see. I like what I got.
Absolutely, Connor. Anything on this one?
I'm going to combine this with the deal after Tita, or no, I'm not. So Nico Horner is a very talented second baseman, but I do think that Brian Reynolds is a very consistent asset. Yanquiel Fernandez, very high upside, and two solid picks. I mean, Hen was after a specific piece, but Tita got a lot for it.
Right. Yeah. So I obviously big Nico Horner fan. Didn't love that I moved him to Tita when I did, but obviously got a good return for him. Brian Reynolds, great player. We've talked about Young Keel in this podcast. And then two picks. Picks are picks. They're assets. They are what they are. But still 4-for-1 with one of the four being a productive 29-year-old outfielder. Um, you know, hard to say either side won or lost. I think Hen still got the best player. I do have Nico over Brian Reynolds, but not by a whole lot. So, I mean, I think Tita actually did maybe just a little bit better. But we'll move on to another Tita trade where he gave away a second base shortstop in Nico Horner, but gets one right back. I think that might be what Connor was trying to allude to. But Tita gets Bryce Terang, and Bragton got Jordan Wicks, Owen Murphy, George Klassen, and Orlando Arcia, with a trade stipulation that if Jordan Wicks makes over 20 starts this year, that Bragton will owe Tita a worst. Once again, Tita, you made the trade. I'll let you go first.
That was I had Terang in my sights. I think that Terang is very Nico Horner esque, similar type players. So I looked at it as basically trading a Nico Horner esque player and trading Nico Horner and getting Bryce Terang, getting Brian Reynolds. I felt like I just improved my team, and at the end of the day, gave myself a little out in case Wicks wasn't hurt very bad. I just thought the total package that I gave up, getting Reynolds, getting Terang, getting Yanquiel, getting the picks, I thought that was a package, for Owen Murphy, Clausen, Arcia, Wicks, and Nico. I think I'd do every time.
Right, yeah. So that was going to be my question. So you comparing Terang and Nico Horner, similarly, if things are all equal there, then basically it's a package of Brian Reynolds, Fernandez, and two picks for Wicks, Murphy, Klassen, and Arcia.
Plus a trade stip that could
right, true, and that stip could hit. I think I saw that Wicks is starting to throw, so it doesn't sound super serious, but things obviously can happen. But that 4-for-4 to me, I would favor the Brian Reynolds side just by a touch because I don't see Arcia as a whole lot. I know that he's playing every day, at least for now, for Atlanta. And then, but yeah, I mean, besides him, obviously Owen Murphy's a prospect, Klassen's a prospect. So it's kind of hard to say exactly what they'll be. But overall, yeah, I would side with getting Brian Reynolds and Bryce Terang. I do believe is a good player. Plays for Milwaukee. Seems pretty entrenched at second base. But we'll see because they have a lot of decent infield prospects and players, and one cold spell, and you never know. But Connor, I'll let you have last word here.
I mean, I think I prefer the Bracton side of the Terang deal. I do like Bryce Terang, but this is the move that Bracton needs to be making. Getting three arms, including Owen Murphy, who's a very high octane prospect, having a terrific first month, and George Klassen, who is very similar. RC is a solid piece. So I do think in the total scheme of the mill infield swap, Tita did well, but I think Bracton might be the ultimate winner in all this, given the pitching depth acquired.
Yeah, fair point. Definitely does need to fill in some holes after that Massavelli deal that we just kind of talked about. So, but we'll move on to the next one. It was Tita getting Vinny Pasquantino. Bracton got for that Alex Kirilloff, Yanquiel Fernandez, James Triantos, and Christian Scott. And Bracton is taking over the Giancarlo Stanton stipulation with height and another stipulation with Connor involving Severino. I'll give my quick thoughts here first. Vinny P, obviously a guy that I like a lot. I've said he's my dynasty first baseman. I like him a lot. It's kind of funny that Yanquiel Fernandez has been traded like 4 times, I feel like, so far this week. I just keep seeing his name. Christian Scott to me is the big get here for Bracton. Really like Christian Scott quite a bit. Had a great debut with the Mets this past week. Probably shouldn't be too long for Bracton to call him up because I think he's in New York to stay. But James Triantos, another player I like for the Cubs, second baseman. I've talked about him probably every time that he's come up in a trade. That I like him a lot. But for me, it's Vinny Pasquantino. He's the star of this trade. He's the get. And I think it was a great get for Tita. So Tita, if you want to take over, what were your thoughts?
I mean hold on real quick, that good you are.
Caught you at a bad time.
Yeah, it's okay. Christian Scott was the hardest part of the deal for me to move because I do think he, I've told Paul. I think we've talked about that. I think he's a dude. But as everybody knows, my kind of strategy, I don't usually get young guys to keep them. I get young starting pitchers to flip them. And so I can get a 25, 26-year-old top 5 to 7 first base bat. My thoughts on Vinny P is he's going to keep getting better. The dude came in, really good eye, really good contact discipline, his StatCast page checks out, hurts his shoulder. I was kind of down on him watching him early. I was like, oh man, his bat speed seemed gone. And then boom, all of a sudden he just gets the timing down, man. And I'm sold on him. Like I said, I mean he's entrenched, as that 5 to 7 first baseman. I've had some nibbles on him already from other guys. I just don't like the price tag. I mean, if I move Vinny, I need something real nice, and so I just thought in this trade, Christian Scott was the big loss for me, but getting Vinny P, it kind of worked out how I needed to.
Absolutely, and Connor, I'll let you finish this out here.
This is all going to come down to Christian Scott versus Vinny P. If Scott can continue this run, I think that That's going to be the winner, but Vinny P just has such a high ceiling and room to improve that I think Tita did very well here.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll jump a few here because we're, getting long on time, and we'll hit if the Ellie deal was the number one trade this week. This was the 1A trade on May 2nd. Jab got Colton Cowser, Pete Crow Armstrong, Vlad Guerrero Jr., Jackson Holiday, and Kyle Teal. And Cody got Fernando Tatis, Freddie Freeman, and Ethan Salas. Whew, quite a big deal here. A lot of pieces that were involved in that LA deal. Cowser, Holiday, and Teal on the move again to Jab and now from Cody. I'll talk about it real quick. To me, the big get here is Fernando Tatis. Hitting in the middle of that great lineup that they have in San Diego. Tatis is a guy I know that Cody has wanted to have for quite a while, and he gets his guy. He had to pay up a pretty big price tag for him. And obviously Freddie Freeman, Mr. 300 basically. You can count him just every year he'll hit 300. But obviously up there in age, so it'll be interesting to see, what Cody kind of thinks about that, what he tries and does. Maybe he'll ride him out and just collect his 800, 900, maybe even 1,000 points on the season and just be content there. But Jab obviously getting, a couple of really good young guys in PCA and Holiday and Teal. Definitely kind of a win now and win for the future move. I'm not sure that Cowser can fill the shoes of Tatis, but I do think that Vlad can cover pretty well, at least somewhat well, in the interim for Freddie Freeman and the loss there. But yeah, I mean, Salas and Teal, give me Salas in a long shot there by a mile, I would say. But PCA and Holiday more than make up for that, I think. So it's kind of hard to say exactly who won this deal because I think both sides got what they wanted to get. Cody got his guys and Tatis and Freeman, and Gab got really good young guys, which I think he kind of needed. So Connor, I'll head to you. What were your thoughts here?
Yeah, I think this is kind of just a theme of other deals we saw this week or this season. Cody is looking for name brands, Bo Bichette, Fernando Tatis Jr., Freddie Freeman, the guys that are going to perform. Dylan Cease can be at that. And Jab, I think, is looking to add a little bit of depth and switch things up a little bit. Vlad Guerrero Jr. has hit a grand slam, if I remember correctly, Sunday, but otherwise has been a little bit underwhelming. So a lot's going to come down to him. And then some very nice pieces overall. I don't really have a good winner for this deal. I think with Salas being 2 or 3 years away and so many prospects involved, it's going to take a lot of time. But I think this deal made a terrific amount of sense for both sides.
Yep, perfect. And then Tita, I'll let you wrap us up.
100% agree. I like it for both sides. It makes sense. I mean, that was a win-win trade if there is one.
Yep, perfect. Couldn't say it better myself. So we'll move on to the next one. Probably again, there was a lot of blockbusters this week, so we'll talk about this one. Jab got Brian Bello, Colson Montgomery, James Triantos, Yanquiel Fernandez, Owen Murphy, and Ricky Tiedemann. And Bragton gets his guy. I'm not going to call him his guy. It's my guy, Jackson Holiday. So he trades away Holiday and the Ellie deal, and then circles back around and goes and gets them for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It looks like 7 players. It must be nice to be able to just throw 7 assets for one. I mean, it's something I don't know that I'd ever do, but regardless, Peta, you can hit us first.
I just don't know, man. I mean, So basically, in acquiring 2 players, he traded away what 13, 14 assets.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, like I said, it's his team. You roll with it. The Holiday could turn out. He's a pup, man. I mean, a lot of guys have struggled their first cup of coffee in the majors. He'll get another shot, but man, I mean, let's say Ellie, let's say Holiday, right? Let's say we live in a world Volpe and Churio, they go to their maximum ability, right? So you have maybe 4 of the top 30 players in baseball in fantasy. I mean, at the best end, man, but at the worst end, you are looking at a team who can be you talk about John Height falling off whenever it happens, because the old guys, if these young guys flop, if Holiday flops, which I don't think he will, but if they don't get their ceiling, I mean, how bad off is Braxton going to be? I just, I, I just can't fathom paying that price for Jackson Holiday. Four assets, 5 max. I mean, but Colson Montgomery, I've had him, I've traded him. He's not a slouch. I just didn't like the player development system in Chicago with him. But Colson Montgomery, has got some Corey Seager comps. So imagine if Colson Montgomery turns into Corey Seager. There's a world where Colson Montgomery turns into a better fantasy baseball asset than Jackson Holiday. Don't think it'll happen, but there's a world there. So I mean, I just don't. I wouldn't do that, but hey, what do I know?
No, 100% that world does exist because Colson Montgomery is a very good, talented prospect. Connor, I'll let you have your thoughts here.
So with the Ellie deal, I can see the argument of making sure you acquire a potential top 5 dynasty asset. He's an electric talent. There's some hit or miss there. Okay. Jackson Holiday is a very high floor player, but there is no scenario, I think, where he ends up being a 40-40 guy, a Ronald Acuna 40-70 type. So giving up not only 5 or 6 assets, but the quality of these assets. I am huge on Brian Bayo, a top 2 pitcher for a Red Sox team, and he's still relatively young. Ricky Tiedemann is a very highly thought of prospect with just some injuries / bullpen concerns. Murphy's great. Colson Montgomery, Steve Triantos, and Yanquiel Fernandez are nothing to laugh at. So this is the second instance where I could have seen 2 or 3 of these pieces moving. And then it seems like Jab is just saying, yep, I want that guy. Yep, I want that guy. Yep, I want that guy. And Braxton is paying it because he just has specific targets and will do whatever he needs to get them back. So there is definitely a universe where the high-end ceiling guys to Braxton's team pay off, but I think that there might need to be some moves to increase more depth upcoming, because if you're in a position where 1 or 2 of those guys fails, it is going to be trouble.
Yeah, and so for me, real quick to break it down, basically everything I said about Braxton and the Ellie trade works exactly against Braxton in this trade, because I think Ellie right now is a top 3 player in fantasy baseball. There's not a person that would agree that Jackson Holiday right now is a top 3 player in fantasy baseball. I mean, maybe Braxton can think that, but strictly at the major league level, we haven't seen it. I mean, and again, I'm the first person that'll say Jackson Holiday will be fine. It was 1 cup of coffee. he's in the minors working things out. He'll get another shot probably within a month or two, and I think he'll excel from it. But that's not a guarantee. And you're paying basically Ellie Price for a guy that has not yet shown that he will be anything in the major leagues. So while I'd like to try and defend Braxton here, I can't do it on this one. I mean, it's and yeah, you can argue, well, Montgomery, he's never appeared, Triantos, Yanquiel, Murphy, like they've never even appeared in Major League Baseball. So it's the value of those players. The value of those players significantly outweighs, in my opinion, the absolute best that Jackson Holiday will be. To me, the absolute best Holiday will ever be is a 30-30 300 guy. Yep. I think that is his absolute ceiling. And to me, that's probably a top 30 player, maybe even top 20. But that's not a top 5. And to me, that package screams top 5. So I'm not gonna get behind Braxton here. I think if he didn't do the Ellie trade, then I could see, well, he paid a lot, but he got his guy. That's his guy. He's got to stick with him now, unless he got a bigger trade package in return. Blah blah blah. So, yeah, it's this one's a tougher one for me, I think, to defend because I won't do it. So, but we'll move on from that one because we got still a few more here to get through. This one's a pretty decent sized one. Bry got Ranger Suarez. Scott got Jet Williams, Joendry Vargas, Robert Gasser, Jacob Lopez, Christopher Sanchez, Hens 26 first, and Cody's 27 first. Bry obviously hunting for a big time pitcher. Gave up a pretty solid prospect package. I can say that he offered something a little similar to me for Tanner Hoke, a little bit behind the scenes. I turned him down. I did end up trading Tanner Hoke a little bit later, I think the next day. But Tita, let's go to you first. Let's see what your thoughts are.
Meanwhile, I'm getting Joe Musgrove 2 first-round picks and Encarnacion Strand for Vinny Pasquantino, Locklear, and Hawk. Anyway, at the end of the day, man, if you believe in Ranger, I get it. I don't know, man. It's hard for me to kind of believe in Ranger. I mean, he doesn't have great stuff. He doesn't have, but dude's been putting up numbers. He's been super consistent. I mean, and you look at the profit for Scott. Scott got Ranger from me for like Joey Meneses and something.
Ty Floyd.
And Ty Floyd. God. I mean, that's a definite. I mean, so basically he traded Joey Meneses, Ty Floyd for the Hall he got. Shout out Scott. I didn't see Ranger Suarez becoming that. But I do know from watching him last year against the Braves a lot. Like anytime Ranger Suarez starts against the Braves, if you're a betting person, pick the Phillies because he owns the Braves. But man, maybe he's figured it out. He's still not old, 27, right? I think Ranger's 27, 28. Maybe he's figured out how to pitch, and if he has, it's a gamble, but for a youngish arm, that's how much it costs. Unless you're young, unless you're on my team, then it doesn't cost that. So, all in all, I get it. It's the price you got to pay.
Absolutely, and then Connor, you can have our last word here.
If Bry hangs a banner, this deal is not going to matter. Who cares about a couple bad first-round picks 2 or 3 years down the line? If he doesn't, Scott is going to get an absolute haul. I'm a big Jet Williams guy, and I'm still convinced Robert Gasser is going to get a decent amount of starts this year. So I think there is some quality and some quantity in here, but let's see if the vibes can keep this up, and let's see if Ranger can keep it up.
Yeah, and Bry was posting that he got burned. I'm not sure that he did. I mean, Ranger Suarez, I think, is a really good pitcher. I don't know that he's this package great. But I mean, barn, I think, is thrown around pretty loosely. I don't think he got barned. I don't think he won the trade. But yeah. So anyway, we'll move on. Tita, I'll let you choose here. Would you rather talk about your Blanco deal or let's see, the Tyler O'Neill deal? Which one would you rather talk about?
I guess Blanco.
All right. So we'll hit that one. Tita got Ian Happ, Luis Arias, and Yolene Cespedes. And John Haidt got Ronel Blanco. Before you go, Tita, I'll hit this real quick. Ronel Blanco obviously kind of been tossed around a little bit, especially last week. I had him. Tita had him. Now John Haidt has him. It's the mystery of the pitcher that comes out of nowhere late in his career. Colin McHugh-esque, I guess. Dallas Keuchel-esque, maybe. Both those guys were Astros as well, ironically. But I kind of like the package that Tita got. Ian Happ, pretty decent outfielder for the Cubs. Luis Arias obviously just got traded to San Diego. It'll be interesting to see. I think that's actually a plus for Tita that he got traded because the Marlins were doing horribly, and San Diego is probably going to compete for a playoff spot. So I do like the move overall for Tita. But if Blanco can continue at least to just be close to what he has been for the month of April, then John Haidt absolutely runs away with it in the short term. Tita, I'll have you go last. So Connor, what was your opinion here?
Tita. I understand Haidt is going for a high upside arm here, and with the Astros infrastructure and how he's looked the first couple starts of the season, Blanco certainly is that. That said, I know that if I'm getting a pitcher off waivers and he has a couple good starts, the ultimate hope is, oh yeah, I can flip him for another piece I like that's maybe more consistent. And Ian Happ and Luis Arias are two pieces that would both qualify there. Arias, I guess, has since been traded, so I think his value's gone up going to a new organization. Happ is in some struggle, so how those two bats do have got flipped later will say a lot, but I think Tita just got an absolute haul here. And Yoenis Cespedes is a very high ceiling prospect, low in the Red Sox organization.
All right, Tina, clean us up here.
All right, so I talked about what Scott got Ranger for. I got of course it don't show up here, but I got Blanco for a worst from not height, him. One worst. So I look at it like, okay, I'm getting Blanco who it could be real, but I get a guy with first base, second base eligibility, so now I can move Terrain to shortstop. Terrain can replace Pena. Arias can be my second baseman. You know what you're going to get with Arias. It is singles a lot, but it's points, man. I mean, the dude's going to put up. He doesn't strike out. He's not going to hit 30 bombs, but he's fine with my lineup for what, because I have guys that hit homers. Ian Happ, who I since traded to Connor. And then Cespedes, who's high upside, I traded him as well. But I mean, at the end of the day, I kind of thought now was the package to kind of cash him in. I kind of sent it to Haidt blind. Like, I know he had been fishing. But yeah, I mean, I just thought when if you ever cash it in, it needs to be more than what you paid for it. And I think getting a Reyes, Hap, and more than a worst, for a worst was probably the right time to go ahead and cash it in.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we'll talk real quick about this one because we're just super long on time, I feel like. Tita got Tanner Hawk and Kerry Carpenter. I got Luis Gill, Alex Verdugo, Spencer Schwellenbach, Ty Floyd, and Bryce 2025 second. Tanner Hawk is the guy that I was loosely trying to shop. I do like Tanner Hawk a lot. But when I was able to get basically 5 assets in return from Tita, it's a deal I wasn't going to turn down. I like Luis Gill. I'm hopeful that he'll remain in the rotation even after Garrett Cole if he comes back this year, probably when he comes back. But then Alex Verdugo, obviously, I think he's kind of taken a step forward this year. Playing half his games in Yankee Stadium, I think, helps a lot with that short right field porch. Schwellenbach, me and Tita have traded him back and forth probably 10 times now, I think. So obviously him and Floyd, not necessarily nailed to the ground here in Norfolk, but Tita, since you were on the other side of this trade, what were your thoughts?
Kind of the same. I mean, it's the price you got to pay for a guy, who's still averaging. Didn't have the greatest start for me in his debut, but he's still over 30 points per game. And I just Luis Gill is a guy that has huge, huge, huge upside. I mean, he does. He really does. I think he's going to keep getting better. I was worried about him getting sent to the pen, but maybe he don't. And it's just the price you got to pay to do business, and especially trying to get a guy. Hawks 3 years younger than Blanco. Is it real? Maybe. Uh, you never know, but you got to pay to play. So I put some chips in there and see how it turns out.
Yeah, no, I do think it is for real. But Connor, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's just a big name arm and Hauk and Kerry Carpenter, I'm low key a very big fan of. So I think Tita got some very nice pieces there. Carpenter ended up on my team, and Paul got a couple nice upside guys. Verdugo's a completely fine Carpenter replacement, and some nice assets as well. So solid deal for both sides.
Sounds good. And then we'll skip here to Tita got Key Brian Hayes, Hurston Waldrep, and Ralphie Velasquez, and Hamko got Alec Boehm. Tita, what was your motivation here?
Um, I've been after. I don't know if people are really familiar with Velasquez. I've been kind of having my eye on him for about 3 or 4 months now. I tried to get up in the draft to get him, couldn't get him. He has a ton of height as a high school bat. They moved him from catcher to first base. The Indians did. I mean, the bat plays. If you don't know who Ralphie Velasquez is, I mean, I think I'm a Brock Wilken guy, but I'm a big Ralphie Velasquez guy. I really think Velasquez is going to hit for power. He's going to be a really good first base prospect, which the Guardians have, Manzardo and Naylor, so maybe he's a trade chip. But I'm a big Velasquez guy. Of course, I was a Hurston Waldrop guy as a Braves fan, and uh, that's an asset for me. I think Baum is legit. I do think it's kind of he's kind of figured it out. Um, and I'm just kind of hoping, I look at it like Brian Hayes was a guy I had in the preseason. He finished last year strong. If Hayes could ever get his launch angle figured out, I think he's a 15 to 20 homer bat who can run a little bit and is entrenched as a third base guy. If not, I need Velasquez to pan out. So, which I think he will, but he's still a few years away. So, could I have gotten more? Maybe, but as well as I do, both of you, when you find if there's a guy you focus on and a guy, sometimes you may take a little less, if that makes sense, to get that guy. And so that's kind of where I was at with Velasquez.
So that guy being Velasquez and not Ke'Bryan Hayes?
Correct.
Gotcha. Yeah, because for me, the way I look at it real quick, Ke'Bryan Hayes to me is as valuable as Alec Bohm. I mean, I've been a big Ke'Bryan Hayes fan for quite a while. I always think he's right on the verge of figuring it out. Never quite seems to get it, but I do think that his value, to me at least, is about the same as Bohm's. But Connor, you can finish this out here.
If I was trading a player of Bohm's caliber, what would I look for? I'd look for a smart downgrade and a couple nice pieces, and that is exactly what Tita got. Ke'Bryan Hayes is a very streaky player, but he has shown some very hot streaks. Kirsten Waldrop, obviously an incredible prospect, and Ralphie Velasquez, I completely agree, could be an excellent first baseman, or I think plays a little bit of catcher still. So I love the haul for Tita here. Homko needed to switch it up, so I get it. But I think that was a lot of value for Bohm, and let's see how long he keeps it up.
Sounds good. And then we'll skip down here to our last trade that we'll discuss for this podcast. I know that there was a bunch of 1-for-1s or 2-for-1s, 2-for-2s, or what have you. I mean, I'm making the executive decision to kind of skip on those. So we'll get to this last one. It was between our two guests here. It was between Tita and Connor. It happened last night. Tita got Brandon Marsh and Tyler Locklear, and Connor got Ian Happ. Connor, you can lead us off here. What was your thoughts?
So Brandon Marsh is the guy that Chad, I think, put on waivers, and I couldn't believe it when I saw it. I'm a big fan and just think that he needed time away from Los Angeles and to get acclimated with Philly to really get going. And he did start off the year hot accordingly. Tita came up with an offer for Ian Happ, who is a bat that I think is incredibly consistent and maybe a potential foundational piece for a year or two. So, and Tyler Locklear is also a very talented first baseman, hit with like a 900 OPS in Seattle's AA system. So, I thought that in between my strong infield prospect and how I got Marsh, it was the right time to strike for a guy who in Hapo I think turns it around. But I think it was a pretty fair deal.
Yeah, I would lean towards that way as well. I would have Ian Happ over Marsh, but Tyler Locklear I think is a pretty good prospect for Seattle. But Tita, let's bring us home. What were your thoughts?
Well, Happ's a 900-point bat. I think he's started out slow, but big pedigree. And I actually agree with Connor on Marsh. Marsh is 25, 26. He's 26, excuse me. Marsh is a guy that, if you look at his stat, he made a swing change middle of last year. And I mean, his stat cast is something. I know the stat cast ain't the end all be all, but his stat cast is a lot of red in there. And I look at that a lot of times. It just, it's not the end all be all, but it's just a tool. And then Locklear, believe in his bat. I kind of wanted another. I think he's a first baseman long term. I don't think he's a third baseman, but the bat plays. I think he's got a chance to get up there in AAA, and then Ty France isn't blocking him, so got a shot. And like I said, it just kind of was get the extra asset. I think Locklear bridged the gap from Happ to Marsh and kind of made it a even win-win trade.
Yeah, absolutely, and that'll finally, I think over an hour we spent talking on trades, but finally that will conclude our trade portion of this podcast, and we now move on to our Week 6 preview. Obviously, it being Monday night, we already have some scores in. But we will kick it off with my matchup against Smell. Probably not the most exciting matchup of the week. But I'll start us off. I do believe I will win this matchup. I do believe I will be back to 3-3. My goal is to get over 600 points. If I get over 600 points and Smell also has over 600 points, then he probably had a cycle or a no hitter. So that's I think that kind of sums up where this one's going to go. Connor, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts?
Paul's going to win because Paul is actively trying to win, and Smell is rostering Jared Schuster and St. Anna Mountain draft picks.
Hold on now. Jared Schuster, he pitched tonight. Oh, he went -4. Okay. He had 2 innings with 1 hit allowed, and because I was watching the game and the White Sox were in it, I was like, oh, maybe. But no. So anyway, T-Dub, what are your thoughts real quick?
I echo Connor. One guy's trying to win. One guy's just arguing with
Cliff.
old boy on Zippy or Clarence. And
Shout out Clarence.
Shout out to Clarence. Shout out to Smell. Brighter days ahead. Tides will roll.
Yeah. So we'll move on now. It's the Bismarck Larks taking on the Richmond Flying Squirrels. We got Bracton. We got Scott. Tita, right back at you. What are your thoughts here?
Scott, he's going to win in Europe. He's going to give an overseas beat down to the Larks. The Larks are in the running for the number 1 pick in the 2025 draft.
Yeah, hopefully Scott doesn't take my luck with him that I went to Europe with last year when I lost by 1 point to Hendog. I'm still not over it. Still haven't forgot about it. I also think Scott will roll. Be interesting to get a full week out of Ellie with Bracton, assuming he gets a full week there in Bismarck. I sure hope so. But Connor, let's close this out on this one. What are your thoughts?
Scott's going to win because I low-key think his depth is great, and I don't trust Bracton's at all.
Fair enough. So now we'll move on to our next one, probably our matchup of the week. It's the Bowling Green Hot Rods. It's the Nashville Sounds. It's Cody. It's Tita. Again, I think this is matchup of the week. I'm gonna take Cody because I think his team is better. Debatable who the best owner is. I think it's probably 1 and 2 here. I'm not sure who's 1 or 2. Tita, I'll hit you last. Connor, what are your thoughts on this really good matchup?
I do think Cody's going to win. Tita is the master of finding underrated players, and Cody is the name brand team. That's been his entire strategy this week. I do think one upside to having name brands is that some of the loftier point totals. Tita's team has very consistently shown that the Sounds can hit 600 points, and Cody's has shown 700. So, like last week, where Cody maybe underperformed a little bit, but still clearly scored enough to win, I do think that Tita's going to manage the hell out of this, and it could be a 30-point matchup like we saw Height versus Hen. But I do think Cody just has such a great team that he's going to win, or if he does fall behind, make the moves to catch up.
Now, the age-old question. Will Tita pick himself to win? Tita, what do you think?
No, I'm up 17 right now, but I have one more start. It's 124 to 107. I don't know. I mean, I think my team's a lot better than, and not saying, I think my team's a lot better than people think. I don't think I have anybody that'll wow you. But if you look in my lineup, you look at guys I can throw in there. I mean, I don't have a stud per se, but there's some solid pieces in there. I think I can keep it close. It really, I really just feel like it depends on the arms. Is anybody can say that. Um, I said earlier you can't have single digit starts or negative starts against Cody, but my first start of the day, Tyler Anderson goes for 6. Mitch Keller, they were head to head. He goes for 41. I do feel better because Bueller went for 8. But then Simeon Woods Richardson went for 38, and Darvish went for 27. So those are the kind of matchups I have to. Those are the kind of point totals I have to put up to compete. But I think Cody, I might keep it close for a little while, but at the end of the day, sometimes, in a short, in a week of fantasy baseball, I mean, you never know. But I would be surprised if the Sounds won this one. I'm gonna go ahead and go with the Hot Rods.
Yeah, you mentioned Simeon Woods Richardson. I think he is probably a player not just for this week to keep an eye on, but see how long he can stick around in that Twins rotation. Obviously, a high pedigree prospect. But yeah, no, we'll see. So we'll move on now to the Clearwater Beach Dogs taking on the Portland Sea Dogs. It's a battle of the good boys, as Connor likes to say with his sod poodles.
No, the wrong two dog teams are the Good Boy Bowl here.
Yeah, I know. You like having your good boy bowl. I know. But anyway, a battle of the dogs, I guess we can say here with Hen and with Jab. Um, Connor, you can jump in here. What are your thoughts?
I think Ken wins this simply because he has more to lose. With Jab, there's a very clear narrative. This team is going to be a top 3 team if it's at full health. The question is if and when that's going to be the case. With Hen, already 3-2, not the Beach Dog standards. I think a lot of levers are going to be pulled, whether that be roster construction or aggressive waiver wire ads to make sure that every last point can be scrapped and the good boy is going to get his meal. So I do think Jab's going to keep it close, 50-point game, but I think Hen almost has to win this.
Yeah, definitely another match of the week contender in this one. Tita, what do you got?
I kind of agree with what Connor said. Jab's a more patient owner. He's not gonna do anything. I wouldn't say knee jerk, but he's not gonna rush into anything deal wise. Where I think Hen is in a desperate mode right now. He's a contender, no doubt. But I think he kind of sees this as a must win. Not a must win, but a need to win. Because you got to beat good teams to win it, and I mean, it just sets the bar of okay, my team is pretty good. I agree with Connor that I think Hen will pull out all stops. I think he'll win. I think it'll be close. I think it'll come down to the weekend. Having a Zach Wheeler 2-start week going against a Luis Castillo 2-start week. I think it's going to be tight, but I think Hen wins by about 30.
So I'll take the opposite. I'll take Portland. I'll take I guess maybe it's an upset. But yeah, I'll take Jab and I'll take him in the upset here against Hen. I think Hen is going to still try and tinker a little bit with his roster, and I think he's going to get caught up a little bit in transition. But definitely a good one to keep an eye on. Maybe not as much of a good one to keep an eye on here for the next one. It is the Hartford Yard Goats against the Rochester Red Wings. John Haidt cruising after getting upset by our guest here, Tita, a couple wins in a row. But, Dave obviously has a great team. He was leading last week against Bry for most of the week. Gave me a scare the week before. So obviously, Dave's putting together a little something here. Maybe this will be closer than I kind of led into. I'm still going to take John Haidt and those Yard Goats. Tita, what do you got?
Uh, man, I'm telling you, I want to pick. I was talking to Dave today because I was trying to get Andy Pajes, who hit a bomb tonight. Dave was talking about go ahead and calling him up. I think he needs to. Dude's in LA to stay. Uh, I think Dave scares Height again. I think Dave. Um, I think Dave. I'm not going to pick him to win. I kind of want to, is because he's been close. He's put the scare in people. I still think Height is going to win, but I mean, man, Matt Olson's got to turn it around for him. Matt Olson's been bad for about 3 weeks now, straight, maybe longer. And I think I really think Dave puts a scare in the Height, but I think Height wins.
Yeah, I think that's probably a fair assessment. And then Connor, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, this is going to be the third week in a row that through Thursday, this is going to be a close matchup, and then Hype pulls away. Currently, Dave is winning, but has 2 more starts. The main thing I want to see from Dave this week is to please eat Patrick Corbin off your roster. The man has not had 15 points per game this decade, and you can find better options on the waiver wire or for virtually any asset.
Yeah, that's fair. Obviously not the best. At one point he was. I mean, maybe not within the last 5 years, but that's fair. We'll move on now to Kannapolis. Hamco taking on our guest here, Connor, and those sod poodles. Connor, I'll have you again go last. Tita, lead us off. What do you think?
I tell you, man, the side poodles, uh, they're kind of like Dave. The side poodles, they're just annoy you. They're like they'll just keep coming. Connor keep, he got Josh Lau back. Uh, you know, uh, it just depends on his arms. I know, like I said, that can be said a lot. I think Homco's in that danger zone of if he doesn't win this week, I think he is going to blow it up. Um, and I think the fire sale is going to start in Kannapolis because the side poodles, baby, whoop, 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 they're going to win.
So it's funny you say that, and yes, Connor's team very annoying. I know it personally as he beat me, put me at 0-3. But I'd like to note that ever since I made my "Get Us Now" speech, that I haven't lost a game. I'm just saying. But I'm actually gonna side with Tita here. I'm taking the sod poodles this week. Uh, as Tita alluded to, Josh Lau started tonight, first game back, first game of the season, 8 points. I think he's going to be that 6-point type of bat. I know I've crapped on him on this podcast. I know that I said he's overhyped, blah blah blah. But again, if he hangs on and he proves me wrong, which I've been proven wrong many times, then Connor kind of has his cornerstone. Um, so yeah, I like. Plus, I like that he's got Yarborough going right now. He's got 12 points. He's got starting pitchers that are relievers. And when you get enough of those guys, in a week, steal, 30, 40, 50 points, that's the difference in a matchup sometimes. And I think it's going to be the difference here. So, yeah, I'm taking your team, Connor. What do you think?
I thank you both for the support, and honestly, I'm going to take my team as well here. I think Hamco's very underrated GM. I think he's brilliant and has been hit with some bad luck, but he currently has 4 players on his roster that are either injured or in the Dominican Republic and not joining a major league roster anytime soon. So I think I take pride not with the best team being the spoiler. I caused Paul to trade Julio Rodriguez, and that was a very big pride point. And it would be another highlight for the Poodles to be the team that convinces Homco to go into a fire sale. So I think that I have the legs to pull this out, given all the pitchers, and if it's still close Wednesday or Thursday, I could see myself making a couple moves to try to secure the victory here.
So I'll correct you real quick. You did not specifically cause me to trade J-Rod. It played a part. I will admit it did play a part. But yeah, we're already over time on. I could get into a million reasons why I traded Julio Rodriguez, but we're over time. Plus, I think now Hamko has gotten. If he's still listening to the podcast, he has written all three of our names on his blackboard. So that's gonna be fun. But anyway, our last matchup that we'll get into this week, another really good one, I think. It is the Rocky Mountain Vibes, and it is the Oklahoma City 89ers. It's Bry versus Chad. Really solid matchup. I'll hit it first. I do think that Bry is, if not one, I think he's two in this league, at least for right now. We talked about it in our breakdowns for the past week that Bry's got some injuries he's dealing with. But he I said it before, he's built his depth pretty well, that he can kind of weather that storm. Chad's going to give him all he's got, but I'll take Bry at the end of the day. Connor, I'll hit you first. What do you got?
Yeah, Bry's a top 3 team, and he's going to win this week. But I do think Chad is going to also have a very big say and prove that he is a very clear contender for one of those last 2 or perhaps 3 playoff spots. So I'll be definitely watching this week, even though I'm pretty confident I know what the outcome will be.
And a loss for Chad here would put him at 2-4. Obviously, still very early on in the season. But Tita, bring us home. What do you got?
I think Chad's going to keep it close. I think the pitching is going to be the big factor. Again, I feel like a broken record because I say that often. But with Bry's case, it 100% is. I think Chad keeps it close for a couple of days. Maybe Thursday it turns, and Bry makes a good run and finishes it off. So I'm gonna pick the Vibes.
All right, sounds good. So that will conclude our preview portion of the podcast and the podcast at large. At kind of as we always do, I'll open it up for any final comments from our two guests. Certainly appreciate you guys coming on, helping me out, helping us out, get a podcast out for this week. Obviously, we try to get these done on Sunday nights, but just too many conflicts in our schedules to get anything done last night. But one day late, not too bad. So yeah, I mean, obviously we love doing these, and as long as there's league-wide interest in listening, we'll still try and get them out in a timely manner and best we can. But Tita, I'll go to you first. Any final comments, questions, any?
Great league, love it. Like I said, I always say it. We were in scrubs. I was super active in scrubs, and now I just go in my scrubs and set the lineup, and I hang out here. It keeps me busy during the day. I keep the chat on, kind of wheel and deal. Great guys. Just can't ask for a better league. I think I'd put this league up against anybody, and I enjoy it. It's good times, good guys, and hopefully I can be the Tita Lesnar this week to knock off the hot rods.
There you go, Tita Lesnar. Let's see it. And Connor, bring us home. What do you got?
I'd love to see Tita Lesnar as well, and very happy to be in this league and happy to be doing the pod again. I think through a few weeks, this has been very close. A lot of teams kind of within each other. We've said there are 5 clear playoff teams, but everyone's competitive, and there always can be a surprise. Dave knocked off Cody last year, and Paul knocked off Cody. John Haidt lost this year. Can't wait to see what's going to happen this Sunday.
Yeah, lots of twists and turns, obviously, that Connor kind of just pointed out. It's what makes this league great. And obviously love playing with all you guys. Love doing this. And and it was a great pod, and hopefully you guys can tune in next week. We'll see what our lineup will be. But until then, have a great day, have a great night, whatever time of day it is for you. And let's keep it going for this week. Take care.